Travel Notes.
How you doing? My name's LeBron James, and I'm the founder of Travel Notes. I'm just kidding. My name's Hudson Chilton. I'm the founder of Travel Notes, the company that's building innovative technology solutions for the banking industry, which we think is ripe for outside disruption. So the first problem that we're focused on solving is one that I identified when I was working for one of the top 15 banks in the United States. That problem is that the banking industry is spending about $500 million per year managing your card so it's not declining when you're traveling. So we all know somebody who has that horror story about their card being declined at the most embarrassing time when they're traveling. And so if you think about this from the cardholder perspective, not only is that embarrassing, frustrating, and a hassle, but every time you call your bank, it's costing them about $4 to answer your phone call. So we solved this problem by automatically notifying your bank of your travel plans whenever you purchase an airline ticket. So here's how it works in detail. So first, we sync up with the back-end systems of your bank and automatically detect whenever you purchase an airline ticket. So we see that Morgan purchased an airline ticket on Delta through a Citicorp bank statement. And then we pull out deep within the transaction data his itinerary associated with that travel or with that airline ticket that he just purchased. So now we know Morgan's going to San Francisco on, let's say, October 31st and returning November 5th. So once we have that information, we return it to the fraud engine for the bank, and that's the piece that decides whether or not to accept or decline Morgan's transaction when he's in San Francisco. So all Morgan had to do was book his flight with his credit card through his bank, and Travel Notes takes care of the rest. So we're actually building on top of that offering because we know where Morgan's traveling. Now we can actually partner with another company that provides compensation for travelers who have been impacted by a delayed or canceled flight. So if Morgan's traveling from, let's say, JFK to San Francisco, or from JFK to London, and he's impacted by a delayed flight by more than 3 hours, the moment he lands in London, he's going to get a notification from his bank saying he's entitled to $450 in compensation from the airline. There's legislation in Europe that a lot of people in this room don't know about that says you're entitled to compensation for delayed or canceled flights in and out of Europe and within Europe. And there's $5 billion in unclaimed funds every year that's supposed to be back in the travelers' pockets. So in order to bring this solution to market, we're partnering with a company called AirHelp, who's a Y Combinator company, and they specialize in helping travelers secure compensation for delayed or canceled flights. So right now they're a mobile app and website, and you have to understand that you're entitled to this compensation in order to use their services. But we're turning that model on its head and distributing it through the banks who we already have your itinerary from. So we know Morgan's traveling to London next month. We know he had a 3-hour delay. We send an email on behalf of Capital One to Morgan and say, here's how to get your compensation, and he gets $450 back in his pocket like he deserves. So what's really exciting, more exciting than the offerings that we have at Travel Notes is our pipeline of customers. So later this month, we're going, actually, it's almost the end of this month. So in September, we're going to Capital One's headquarters and demoing our technology, along with Discover headquarters in Chicago. I used to work for Fifth Third Bank, so we're in negotiations with them as well. And a number of other household names that you'll recognize here on the screen, along with folks like Wells Fargo. So we made a lot of traction there, and this was partly due to the team that we built. So as the founder and CEO, I used to work for Fifth Third Bank, which was the origin of Travel Notes. Jonathan Pickers, our CTO, he's built our technology. He used to work for folks like General Electric, Johnson & Johnson, Sogeti Consulting, and Ken Roth was our advisor for the past year. So our revenue model is pretty simple. We're selling directly to financial institutions, which there are about 6,000 of them domestically. Our price point's anywhere between $40,000 and $2.5 million, depending on the size. So a Capital One account would be somewhere around $2 million. And we also take commission based on the amount of successful refunds that we give back to the customer. So over the past 12 months, we've made a lot of progress. We were accepted into the Uptech Accelerator program in September. We finished our product in April. We have a reseller agreement that we're negotiating right now with TSYS, which is the largest credit card processing company in the United States. They're going to be distributing our product on their behalf. We have an on-site with Capital One Discover demo at Finovate in New York City, which is the biggest fintech conference in the United States. And then we're here. We're part of Awesome Fellowship, which we're excited about. In November, we're targeting the launch with our first bank. So thank you.
Hudson, you told us who you're planning to meet with. Have you met with any banks yet? Any larger groups already?
Yeah, so all of those banks on the screen previously, we've met with and we're in active sales conversations with them. There are other banks that weren't on that list that we've had 1 or 2 conversations with, but everybody that you saw from Wells Fargo, Capital One, Discover, we're in active sales conversations with.
Like phone conversations? And
Yep.
Then you mentioned that you're going face-to-face, I guess, on some of them.
Yep, so we have face-to-face with Discover, Capital One, been face-to-face with Fifth Third because I live in Cincinnati. And then a lot of the sales has been virtual, which actually worked out well for us. So there's folks like Silicon Valley Bank that you've seen on the screen. They gave us a verbal commitment at the end of July to implement with us. So we haven't had the contract on the table, but that was just all virtual business.
Did the banks care about AirHelp?
So the big banks do care about AirHelp. So Capital One, that's part of what's leading the sale. The smaller banks like Silicon Valley Bank, which is a more niche private bank, are more interested in providing their customers with that seamless experience in terms of getting accepted. So it's a split between which product is leading the sale. But for a bank like Capital One, we'd be giving $90 million back to their cardholders. So that immediately jumps off the page when we say, we'll be giving $90 million back to your cardholders, and they'll be asking for participation in getting some of that back, which will be nice for everybody.
So just at the beginning, technically, you are fitting in, you're processing their card data as it comes through their
Yep.
back end? Are you in their processing operation, or they make calls out to a service that you guys are running, or what?
Yeah, so they dump us files of their transaction data on a daily basis. So it's a pretty standard thing for them to do of sending out their transaction data to third-party vendors. So we're going to be part of that stream where we get the transaction data and then we scrub it for the itinerary data and we return it via an API to their fraud engine. So TSYS is one of the largest credit card processing companies in the United States. It is the largest for retail banking. So they have over 600 million accounts on file, over 1,000 banks. So they have household names like Bank of America, Fifth Third Bank, Capital One. And so we're currently negotiating a 30% revenue sharing contract with them, which would allow us to get introduced to all of these folks.
More questions?
So it was kind of a surprise to me to hear that if I buy an airline ticket with a credit card, my bank knows my itinerary.
Yep.
What is assuming more people find out something like that and are like, hey, I don't like that, and assuming airlines stop sending that information to the credit card,
Yep.
what's your, how do you deal with that situation?
So the airlines will not stop sending that because it's primarily used for expense reporting in the corporate world. So the corporate cardholders want to have that information in order to do expense reporting. So there's a small possibility that will be cut off for consumers because besides the applications that we're going after, it's not as important to the consumer in the current state. And then to answer your first question around privacy, a lot of folks are doing, well, not a lot of folks, but American Express is already doing something very similar in their fraud strategies. And there are going to be, this will be positioned within the market, and we've never gotten feedback from any banks other than let's make sure we keep this data secure around pushback from the consumers.
So basically, there's already so much upside to that information going to the bank that that's not really a serious concern, because it sounds like once you explained it, even the customer benefits from
Yeah,
that, especially if they had the customer benefits, so there's not as likely to be pushback in that area.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and I think so there could be the option in the future. Right now, the current model that we've been talking to banks about and that they've proposed is everybody's enrolled, and you might not necessarily know that you're enrolled as a consumer, which is fine because it's part of the fraud strategy, really. They're just using the data in an intelligent manner that they already have in order to make your transaction more seamless.
Very good, let's give it up.